Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Do you ever remember reading a book that is so beautiful, that is so gorgeous, that you wish you could just dive right into the pages? Think something like Hogwarts Castle from Harry Potter, or a beautiful elvish forest somewhere in the Lord of the Rings? Well, I've got news for you. This video is not about that. These settings that I'm going to talk about today are so terrifying, so horrifying, that you'd just be so happy that you are outside of the page. And if you ever find yourselves in these situations, you would run like hell. Please stay tuned. First of all, let's think about what makes a terrible, horrifying setting. Well, think about the environment that the action is taking place in, that the characters find themselves in. It could be something like a haunted castle. It could be out in the open, in the wilderness. It could be a city that is overrun by creatures. Pretty much anything. Now, in this video, I'm going to not mention too many books that I've already spoken about on this channel. There are two that I absolutely have to mention, but the rest of them are books that have been unspoken and have not said a word about these books. Lastly, there are different genres, mostly horror, but I have included one or two other genres that fit the theme of terrifying settings. Let's continue. Okay, let's have a couple of honorable mentions. First of all, The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Now, I could have chosen Hannibal. I could have chosen any one of his three novels with Hannibal Lecter. Now, the reason I say setting, it's actually more like settings in this novel. There are two or three places you would not like to find yourself, where you would rather run like hell. Where Hannibal Lecter, perhaps very minor spoilers ahead, Hannibal Lecter is being kept and looked after, I would get out of there if I were you. I wouldn't be in the vicinity of this man anywhere during the space of this book, because not only is he a terrifying serial killer, he is also a cannibal. Secondly, another setting. I wouldn't want to find myself anywhere close to the other serial killer that needs to be caught. I wouldn't want to find myself in a pit where this man is crying out above me. It puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. Let's rather run like hell and get away from that situation. Okay, the second novel is a little bit different. This is Legion of the Damned by Sven Hustle. Now, Sven Hustle was a German soldier during World War II, and he's written a number of books about his experiences, but I think none are as brutal and as heartbreaking as Legion of the Damned. This was written about the German offensive against the Soviets, against Russia, during World War II, and sometimes it is seriously hard to read. It is brutal, it is unflinching, and you would not want to find yourself on that battlefield. In fact, I think any book on World War II, or World War I for that matter, that is a truly horrifying setting. Okay, now for the top 10. First of all, we're going to start with a couple of creature features, starting with James Herbert the Rats. Now, there are some serious trigger warnings for this book. It is brutal, it is gory, and there is serious animal harm, and I mean serious. Imagine a London where the balance of power between humans and rats has shifted, and these rats are running amok, and they're killing both human, livestock, anything that gets in their way. Now, don't know about you, but I would not like to be in that fictional London. It is truly horrifying, it is gory, it is detailed, and yeah, Run Like Hell. That is The Rats by James Herbert. Next up we have a novella that has given so many people around the world a terrible fear for the ocean and sometimes for water in general, and that is very obvious Jaws by Peter Benchley, where it takes place not only by the beaches where people are losing their lives to this giant man-eating shark, but also out in the water when these men go to hunt the shark. Now it is truly terrifying, and if you have a phobia for sharks, this will just make it 10 times worse. And I've got an interesting story to tell you regarding sharks. I used to surf quite a lot in Cape Town, and we used to surf and paddle out to the back line just beyond the breakers and wait for the next waves to take us in, where you sit on your board with your legs hanging over the end in the ocean. On the side of the beach there are these mountains where there are shark spotters. So there were no nets in Cape Town. They're shark spotters with these fancy binoculars that can actually see into the water with special infrared or whatever it is, and they can see if a shark is coming too close to the shore. And when that happens, they sound the alarm, and we very quickly but calmly, most of the time, paddle our way back to shore, and everyone gets out of the ocean. Just thought I'd let you know. That is Jaws by Peter Benchley. Now in 8th position we have a haunted story. Now I've never read a haunted house story that has given me the chills to the bone and has even come close to the pure terror of The Shining by Stephen King. This Overlook Hotel is haunted, and it is cut off, it is isolated from the mainland. It is a vast hotel full of memories of suicide and murder, and there is so much going on in this novel that you start to question your sanity. There are strange happenings lurking around every corner. There are rooms that are truly terrifying, and I would stay well away from this hotel, the Overlook Hotel, if I were you. Next up we have another novella called Hellbound Hot by Clive Barker. Now towards the beginning of the story, this man sits in a room. You don't want to be in this room. He is unlocking a puzzle box, and when he unlocks this puzzle box, he is promised great pleasure. These Cenobites come up, almost these creatures from hell, and believe me, all hell breaks loose. And I wouldn't want to be sitting in that room with him when that happens. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but then again it is right at the beginning of the story, right at the beginning of the book. But yeah, pleasure and pain, a little bit of S&M, is it? And yeah, I don't want to be in that room when these things start appearing, because they might just turn their attention to you. Next up we have Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now there are so many terrifying settings in this novel, from the Gothic castle of Count Dracula in Transylvania to the haunted ship where Dracula has been taken to London. If I'm giving away a few spoilers, it's very minor, it's not going to affect the overall plot of the story. Also there's an insane asylum, you wouldn't want to find yourself there. The story takes place in Victorian London, which is not the safest or happiest place to be as well. This is a terrifying novel, and as I said, there are so many horrifying settings that will chill you to the bone in Dracula. Next up we have my second war entry, World War II, but this is unlike anything you've ever read before or you've ever heard of before. This is basically set inside a U-boat during World War II, a German manned U-boat, and it is called Das Boot, and it is written by Luther Gunther Buchheim. Now this U-boat is doomed. It is being attacked from the air, it is being hunted, the men inside are terrified, they are claustrophobic, they are being hammered by terrible stormy weather, and it seems like everything is against them. And that submarine, the U-boat, starts to slowly fall apart as well. I cannot imagine a more terrifying setting than that. And I cannot imagine how those men must be feeling inside that setting, and inside that claustrophobia, inside that terror. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere close to that U-boat. Now, there could have been any number of Stephen King novels that I could have included on this list, but this next one is genuinely one of his most horrifying and terrifying stories from his early days, and that is Cujo. Now, I'm not going to speak too much about the plot because it's going to give away spoilers. I'm not really going to mention too much about this particular setting that I'm thinking about because it is a spoiler and happened later on in the novel. But let's just talk about basically what happens. You've got this gentle, friendly family pet, this giant Saint Bernard, who gets bitten by a bat, and he develops rabies, and sadly he goes completely nuts. He turns into a monster. Now, some of the settings, and the one in particular, is just truly horrifying, claustrophobic, and I wouldn't want to be trapped. I'm not going to say anything else. You need to read the book to discover for yourselves. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near this dog. Okay, in third place now for something completely different. And I've never mentioned this genre on my channel before, but I love fantasy. I love dark fantasy. And this particular book by Raymond Feist, Shadow of a Dark Queen. And it's part of the Serpent War saga. And this particular scene has stayed in my mind towards the beginning of the book. There is a raging battle between these mortals. Now these mortals are great warriors, and these demons. And the demons are triumphant. Now I want to just read this short passage of what happens to these mortals when they get captured. Very short passage. Then the demon reared over Jawa as a warrior stands over a child. The Shah struck out with as much strength as he could muster, raking his son's short sword across the creature's outstretched arm. The demon shrieked at the pain, but it then ignored the wound, slowing for a second while black talons the size of daggers skewered Jawa, punching through armor and body as he gripped him around the middle. The demon raised the ruler up towards his face and held him at eye level. As the light in Jawa's eyes began to fade, the demon laughed and said, "You are the ruler of nothing, foolish mortal. Your soul is mine, little creature of flesh. And after I eat you, you still shall you linger to amuse me between feedings." So basically what happens here, I'm going to go a little bit further. These creatures, these demons, they kill these warriors, but they capture their souls. They don't allow their souls to escape, so that they can feed on them over and over and over again. Now can you imagine being caught by these demons and being in this situation and on this planet where this happens? Okay everyone, now we come to second spot. And up until this point I haven't spoken about any post-apocalyptic tales or dystopias or anything like that. And I have spoken about this next book on my channel, and for those of you that know me, you know that this is my favorite horror novel of all time. And we are talking about Swanson from Robert McCammon. Now this is a truly terrifying post-apocalyptic novel where the world has been devastated by nuclear destruction, and these survivors are left to eke out a living in a nuclear wasteland. And all I can say is I've done a review on this book. If you want to know more about this particular novel, please go back to previous videos. And really, you wouldn't want to be on this planet in this book. It's some very graphic stuff going on, but I would keep well away if I were you. That is Swanson by Robert McCammon. And finally, everyone, we come to number 1. Now this has to be the most harrowing, disturbing, terrifying novel that I've read this year. My serious 5 stars. I would have given it a lot more if I can, and that is The Terror by Dan Simmons. And once again, I have given a pretty sort of detailed discussion about this book, but it is truly tragic, based on a real story, and you would not want to be in the Arctic, which is where this takes place, with these men trudging through the ice, starving, broken, almost freezing to death, and this goes to very, very dark places. And I cannot think of a more hostile, terrifying setting than Dan Simmons' The Terror. Once again, if you want to know more about this book, I've done a video on it. You're just going to have to go back through my archives and you can have a look at my review of Dan Simmons' The Terror. Okay everyone, that's pretty much it for my terrifying settings. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that. You may have noticed that behind me on the shelf things have changed very, very subtly and slightly. There's a couple of DVD covers there. I'm just slowly warming up for a new exciting readathon for April, which is the old school April. And in my next video, instead of doing my wrap up of all the videos of all the books that I've read this month, I'm going to swap things around. I'm going to be doing my TBR for April. And there's a watchathon as well, so I'll be doing my watchathon TBR for April. Until then, stay tuned. Keep those pages turning, take care of yourselves, and cheers.